NFLIan Wharton at NFLFilmStudyFeatured. Columnist IVMarch 7, 2019. Wright, Associated Press. The 2019 NFL offseason has reached the edge of free agency, which begins March 13, meaning it's time for each franchise to be aggressive in building the best situation possible. While some are looking to add a difference maker, others would be better off collecting future assets. We've identified the one off-season trade each NFL team should make to help them reach their goals. Because of cap constraints or roster construction, not every swap will be jaw-dropping. Long-term sustainability and immediate needs were considered in these deals. Hot stove rumors also helped reveal who may be attainable. As we go through the trades, we'll link any buzz regarding the player. Ted S. Warren, Associated Press. The Kyler Murray to Arizona rumors have been red hot recently as the NFL Combine provided media access to team personnel. NFL Network's Kimberly Jones reported teams view Murray as the universal top pick for Cliff Kingsbury's Cardinals, even though the team took Josh Rosen number 10 overall last year. Though it would be shocking to see Arizona give up on Rosen, the team's brass needs to make the best decision for the franchise. Murray and Rosen aren't much alike in their play styles, but both boast strengths that should allow the Wright staff to find success. If Kingsbury desires Murray's explosiveness over Rosen's cerebral nature, then maybe he can override general manager Steve Keim's 2018 first-round investment. If so, Rosen must be traded. Even coming off a bad rookie season in which he was constantly being hit, Rosen should have considerable value. They shouldn't take less than an offer that starts with a second-rounder. Even for teams such as the Washington Redskins, Miami Dolphins and Cincinnati Bengals, moving their first-rounder would still net an excellent prospect for 3 years under a cheap contract. Mark Lomolio, Associated Press. The Atlanta Falcons had a disappointing 2018 because of myriad key defensive injuries and limited returns from several veterans. That and a tight budget mean change is coming. They have to trim as much cap fat as possible as Dan Quinn and his staff look to rebound. General Manager Thomas Dimitroff doesn't have many bad contracts to shed, but he also doesn't have the salary space to make a big splash. Moving off Ryan Schroeder's $7.75 cap number would help the Falcons maneuver in free agency, as trading him would open an additional $4 million. The 30-year-old offensive lineman is coming off a down year, so any interested party would be doing the Falcons a favor by taking his salary. A conditional pick or late-round swap like the Miami Dolphins and Jacksonville Jaguars completed for Brandon Albert in 2017 is a good template for this deal. Atlanta would then start Ty Sambrailo or a rookie at right tackle. Lince Ladke, Associated Press. New Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman told the Lounge podcast, HT, the Ravens' official site, he wants an elite running back to pair with quarterback Lamar Jackson. They could get into the Le'Veon Bell sweepstakes with creative cap management, but chances are they'll have to look into cheaper options. Raiding another team's backfield could offer young, explosive playmakers who can develop in Roman's system. While Tampa Bay's Ronald Jones would be a solid buy low option after his disappointing rookie season, Miami's Kenyon Drake is more established and a better home run hitter to pair with incumbent runner Gus Edwards. Miami could be open to moving Drake for a middle-round pick as it restarts with a new staff. The 25-year-old has yet to earn a majority workload because of pass blocking and durability concerns. But with Baltimore, Drake's explosiveness in outside zone schemes would further stress run defenses. The Ravens would have unrivaled backfield speed, and Drake would double as a capable receiver. He's entering the final year of his rookie deal. Nick was his. Associated Press. As painful as it was to watch Buffalo's 2018 passing offense, the Bills have the assets to pump talent into their woeful unit. Though the class of free agent receivers is thin, they can still dip into the veteran pool and snag an immediate contributor. Los Angeles Chargers pass catcher Travis Benjamin makes a lot of sense. Benjamin is set to earn $6.5 million in the final year of his deal despite only 12 receptions in 2018. His usage dropped significantly because of the team's depth around him, making him expendable. Acquiring him could cost next to nothing, but his speed and ability to play in the slaughter out wide would be valuable to Buffalo. Along with Robert Foster, Zay Jones and presumably another receiver either drafted or signed, the Bills can have a balanced receiving core that complements quarterback Josh Allen's skill set. Foster and Benjamin can flourish as intermediate and deep threats. In addition, there's no long-term commitment with Benjamin, making it easier to create a rotation of capable playmakers. Rick Scateri, Associated Press. Losing star guard Andrew Norwell was a killer for the Carolina Panthers last offseason. Instead of tagging the stalwart, they failed to even replace him with an adequate option. Bolstering this offensive line via trade should be a priority despite having only $17.4 million in cap space. The Cleveland Browns could prove to be a valuable partner in a deal here. On Wednesday, ESPN's Aditi Kinkawala reported the Browns could move on from guard Kevin Zeitler, who is one of the best in the league. The soon-to-be 29-year-old is expensive and is sitting in front of 2018 second-round pick Austin Corbett. On paper, the Browns would be foolish to move Zeitler since they're already flush with cap space. But if the Panthers can swap a day 2 pick for the elite blocker, they'd have one of the nastiest interior lines in football. Zeitler's $12.4 million cap hit would force them to move some money around, but he'd be well worth it. Tony Avelar, Associated Press. The downside of the Chicago Bears' dramatic 2018 leap is the resulting salary cap limitations on general manager Ryan Pace. They may lose free agent safety Adrian Amos because of those cap constraints. They'd be wise to deal another veteran for a draft pick to free space as they try to build a sustainable winner. Running back Jordan Howard fetched an offer of a third-round pick at the October trade deadline, per David Ha of the Chicago Tribune. While it's understandable the Bears kept him for the playoff race, any similar offer should be quickly accepted. Howard's decreased efficiency and fit within Matt Nagy's offense make him a candidate to be replaced via the draft. Howard can bring value to a more traditional offense that feasts on interior runs. His yards per carry average dipped from 5.2 in 2016 to 3.7 in 2018, though, which is a sign of a skill mismatch within the scheme. He'd make sense for the Jets, Raiders, Bills, Texans and Buccaneers for a day 3 pick. NFLIan M. Eben Hack, Associated Press. The Cincinnati Bengals went bold with their head coaching hire, opting for a young, promising choice in 35-year-old Zach Taylor. The team's new regime needs to shake things up because the roster has grown stale. Taylor and the Bengals should be aggressive with their $49.5 million in cap space and try to compete for the AFC North in 2019. A perfect trade partner is the cap-strapped Jaguars. Now paying for their free agent bonanza from a few years ago, the Jaguars need to offload several veterans to reset their money. That means letting defensive tackle Malik Jackson walk, even though he's still a quality piece. Moving Jackson would save the Jaguars $11 million this year and $13.8 million in 2020. The Bengals should have leverage to rework that deal and acquire Jackson for next to nothing. Pairing the relentless, versatile tackle with Geno Atkins would give the Bengals one of the NFL's better duos and shore up a major weakness. Seth Vinik, Associated Press. The trade rumors continue to swirl around Odell Beckham Jr. Despite his recent extension and obvious on-field talent, though he's one of the league's best receivers, Beckham brings baggage with his sideline outbursts. But he's also on a Hall of Fame pace, on a set long-term contract and has played with a mediocre quarterback for years. If the New York Giants make the mistake of trading Beckham, the Cleveland Browns would be a tremendous landing spot. The Browns are flush with cap space for the next few years and could use a game-breaking receiver for quarterback Baker Mayfield. Along with a creative offensive designer and head coach Freddie Kitchens and an exciting young quarterback, the Browns also have a dominant offensive line to buy Beckham time to create big plays. The receiver's cost should be high because of his immense talent. Unlikely to sniff a player of his caliber with the 17th pick, the Browns should happily invest in Mayfield by swapping that selection and possibly more for Beckham. A surrounding cast of Nick Chubb, Jarvis Landry, David Njoku, Rashard Higgins and Beckham would be one of the NFL's best. Matt Rourke, Associated Press. The Dallas Cowboys were slated to have decent cap space for the first time in years, but they won't have a significant amount after they franchise-tagged DeMarcus Lawrence. If they have dreams of adding Earl Thomas and more as they pursue a Super Bowl, they'll have to trim some fat. Unfortunately, that means trading stalwart linebacker Sean Lee. Lee will count as $10 million against the cap this year and carries a $3.1 million dead cap number in a trade. After he lost his job to Leighton Vander Esch, Lee has no future with the team unless his pay is severely reduced. But he could make an impact elsewhere. He averaged 123 tackles per year from 2015 to 2017 before he missed 9 games in 2018. The rangy playmaker isn't worth much and needs a pay cut, but he'd be a talent upgrade for other contenders. The Steelers stand out as a terrific option, considering Lee is from the area and went to Penn State. Dustin Bradford, Getty Images. Already a participant in a major off-season trade, the Denver Broncos have more work to do at quarterback. Acquiring Joe Flacco gave the Broncos an expensive QB depth chart that lacks long-term hope. Now general manager John Elway must prove his acumen as he tries to swap Case Keenum, despite a lack of leverage. Keenum carries a $21 million cap hit, and cutting him would only save $11 million. A trade, however, would open $18 million. But it's hard to envision any team being interested in the 31-year-old journeyman for that kind of money, especially now that everyone knows he's on the outs. Flacco isn't discernibly better than Keenum, but he offers a different skill set. Elway must make a Keenum trade work to avoid allocating more than $30 million in cap space to a quarterback room that lacks a long-term plan. The only teams that make sense for Keenum at this price are Arizona, Miami and Washington as either a stopgap or backup. Todd Olszewski, Getty Images. The Detroit Lions are a sneaky candidate for an aggressive off-season. Armed with $33.6 million in cap space, the Lions could swing a trade and sign a quality veteran without disrupting their books. They have critical needs for a cornerback and pass rusher. Finding a number 2 corner to play across from star Darius Slay shouldn't be hard. Detroit could use a physical presence who disrupts receivers better than incumbent Nevin Lawson. Baltimore's Brandon Carr appears to be the perfect short-term fix. The Ravens have already jettisoned Flacco and Eric Weddle as they clean their cap sheet. Moving Carr, who is their third outside corner and set to make $7 million in 2019, is a must, as they extended slot Tavon Young. Carr will turn 33 in May but has been durable and reliable because of his technique and 6 feet 0 inches, 210-pound frame. He'd be well worth a late-round pick and serve as a bridge starter for the Lions. Joe Robbins, Getty Images. It's not surprising the New York Giants are considering trading pass rusher Olivier Vernon 3 years into his career with the franchise, as NFL Network's Ian Rapoport and Mike Garafolo reported. He carries too big of a contract for someone who was never an elite creator off the edge in Miami. While a solid presence, his $19.5 million cap hit is a tough pill to swallow for the Giants, considering the state of their roster. Moving Vernon isn't a must, as New York can trim money elsewhere, but it could recoup a decent asset for him. The Green Bay Packers make the most sense as a suitor. Though Vernon won't become Khalil Mack, he'd be a boost for a Packers defense that needs to create more pressure. With $34.5 million in cap room and the ability to find more, Packers could justify moving a third-round pick or more for Vernon as part of their roster revamp. The 28-year-old would also likely benefit from playing with Mike Daniels and Kenny Clark on Green Bay's defensive line. He's set to be a free agent again after 2020. NFLIan, Getty Images. Another giant on the move in our projected trades is cornerback Janoris Jenkins. The 30-year-old can still play well enough, but his $14.75 million cap hit is an albatross for a team that's hurting for cap space and needs to address holes all over the roster. They could repurpose the $7.75 million they'd saved via trade to get younger and deeper. Jenkins had a phenomenal 2016 season, but injuries led to a decline the last 2 years. Still capable in man and zone due to his quick twitch talent, Jenkins can be a solid second corner with some upside because of his ball skills. He's just not worth the superstar salary for a non-playoff team. Enter the Houston Texans, who have arguably the NFL's worst cornerback situation. With $74 million in cap space and a dire need for stability at the position, they can justify moving middle-round picks for Jenkins. He'd immediately bring more of a dynamic presence to the unit. Michael Hickey, Getty Images. The veteran quarterback carousel is looking subpar this offseason. The most interesting signal caller who could be available might be 25-year-old Jacoby Brissett. The Indianapolis Colts backup is entering the final year of his rookie contract. Colts general manager Chris Ballard told reporters he wouldn't trade Brissett unless blown away, but it's time to get value before he walks. Brissett showed enough in his 2017 stint as the starter for a team to use a day 2 pick in a year to see if he can be their answer. At best, the Colts would only get a 2020 third-round compensatory pick if Brissett leaves next offseason. Getting another day 2 draft pick could allow Indy to chase a valued asset on the trade market, such as Beckham, Antonio Brown or a star pass rusher. Saving Brissett in case Andrew Luck gets hurt is understandable, but it's not the best usage of assets. Instead, the Colts could leap out in front of their competition by maximizing Brissett's value. Alika Jenner, Getty Images. Sway already had the Jaguars trading Jackson to the Bengals to help alleviate their cap situation, but it's time to use some assets. Even though Les Bowen of the Philadelphia Inquirer reported the Jaguars are expected to sign Nick Foles in free agency, they shouldn't get complacent. Jacksonville should move up in the draft to select Ohio State's Dwayne Haskins. Though Foles has been magical at times, there are reasons the 30-year-old hasn't had sustained success. He needs a simple offense and elite playmakers to be good enough, and the Jaguars can't replicate what the Eagles gave him in his incredible 2017 Super Bowl run. He's a stopgap. Haskins, on the other hand, is a cerebral passer with the skill set to blossom into one of the NFL's finest. A one-year starter at Ohio State, he's already more advanced mentally than most quarterback prospects. Giving him time to refine his game behind Foles and eventually supplant him would be the best long-term course the franchise can take. Moving up from the 7th overall pick into the top 5 may cost the Jaguars day 2 picks or a 2020 first-rounder, but they could sleep comfortably knowing they've addressed the most important position. Tom Scherbowski, Getty Images. The Kansas City Chiefs' defense was a bottom-of-the-barrel unit in 2018, and it cost them in their playoff loss to the New England Patriots. Their 31st-ranked defense in yards per carry was woefully ineffective and must be addressed. The easiest way to bolster Steve Spagnuolo's D is to add a gap-eating veteran. Buffalo's key 2018 free agent signing, defensive tackle Star Lotulelei, was a bust. The run stuffer played just 47% of the Bills' defensive snaps and accumulated only 17 tackles. His $50 million contract was a terrible investment. Still, he'd be a good fit in an expanded role as a one technique for the Chiefs. Trading him would open cap space for the Bills and remove all guaranteed money on the Chiefs' end. While Latulippe would still be expensive, Spagnuolo could utilize him next to Chris Jones, much in the same way Latulippe played with Kawann Short in Carolina. A late-round pick could net the Chiefs a starter who impacts the unit beyond his individual stats. Lynn Sladke, Associated Press. The Los Angeles Chargers ran out of steam in 2018 as injuries stacked up, and the Patriots eviscerated them in the playoffs. However, they finally seem to get over some of the haunting losses that have plagued them in recent years. They should continue to pump talent into this roster to boost their chances of a deeper playoff run in 2019. Trading for Miami Dolphins linebacker Kiko Alonso would reinforce a position of need for the Chargers while making them more dynamic. Though Alonso's effectiveness runs hot and cold, his ability to create turnovers helps to justify his $8.3 million cap hit for a contender. Meanwhile, it doesn't make sense for the Dolphins to keep him around as they head into a rebuild. Playing behind Brandon Mabin, Joey Bosa, Corey Liuget and Melvin Ingram would also open pass rush lanes for the weak-side linebacker. The Chargers wouldn't ask Alonso to be a star, and he would be insurance for if Denzel Perryman can't stay healthy or leaves in free agency. He'd likely be available for a day 3 pick. Carolyn Castor, Associated Press. As aggressive as the Los Angeles Rams have been the last 2 years, it's time to sell some of their pricier players and rely on their scouting staff to unearth talent. Though they aren't in dire need of cap space, the luxuries of spending on a slot cornerback are gone. LA should trade corner nickel Roby Coleman. Defensive coordinator Wade Phillips reduced Roby Coleman's role in 2018, cutting his snaps by nearly 10%. With his salary growing to $6 million, the Rams should replace him in the draft for a fraction of the cost. Trading him would open about $5 million in space. The 5 feet 8 inches, 180-pounder is still only 27 years old and is a capable starter. He brings physicality and great quickness to help make up for his height disadvantage. Still, the Rams can't expect much more than a late-rounder, since free agency is deep with lengthier slot corners. Bruce Lucone, Associated Press. After they spent the last several years toiling in mediocrity, the Miami Dolphins appear ready to rebuild. Overspending on mediocre outsiders, trading talented in-house players and failing to develop from within have plagued them. They must purge expensive veterans and retool with accumulated assets. Their most talented player is safety Rashad Jones. The 31-year-old was still dynamic even as he struggled with a torn labrum in 2018. But his massive $17 million cap hit is an albatross for a team that's not ready to win. Because of his most recent extension, trading him after June 1 would open the most cap room. They'd save $13.1 million in 2019 cap space at that point and $11.6 million in 2020. Trading him to Houston, Indianapolis, Detroit or Green Bay for a middle-round pick could give both teams exactly what they need. Jeff Haynes, Associated Press. The Minnesota Vikings could swap cornerback Trey Waynes for Oakland Raiders guard Kelechi Osemele in a rare player-for-player swap that would work wonders for both the individuals and teams involved. For Minnesota, this would use one roster strength to address a major weakness. The Vikings' cornerbacks are loaded with talent, including Xavier Rhodes, Mike Hughes, Holton Hill and Mackenzie Alexander. Paying Waynes $9 million on his 5th-year option is a tough sell considering their tight cap situation. Osemele would benefit from getting out of Oakland's outside zone scheme into an inside zone and power mix like Minnesota's. This would give quarterback Kirk Cousins and running back Dalvin Cook time to operate. Osemele's $10.2 million salary would nearly offset Wayne's deal and could be restructured to lower his 2019 cap hit in exchange for 2020 money. Michael Ainsworth, Associated Press. There's never been a team as good as the Patriots at exploiting market inefficiencies and getting the most out of their talent in the salary cap era. Coming off another Super Bowl win, they can continue to be aggressive with acquisitions and leverage late-round picks for veterans. With $23.9 million in cap space and the ability to reach nearly $40 million with some restructures, they can chase a veteran tight end. It's a position of need, as Rob Gronkowski's future looks murky and Dwayne Allen has been released. The Patriots could overhaul the position through the draft and a trade, making 35-year-old Vernon Davis an attractive option despite his age. Davis has been a playmaker for Washington over the last 3 years when given the chance, averaging 14.3 yards per catch. His speed continues to be a problem for linebackers and safeties, and he's an adept blocker. If partnered with a quality rookie, the Patriots could once again hit a home run after retooling. His $6.3 million salary would need to be reduced, but Washington should be a willing trade partner, as it needs to slash several high-priced veterans anyway. Julio Cortez, Associated Press. The New Orleans Saints tried to reinforce their playmaking depth by signing receiver Cameron Meredith last offseason. He was coming off a torn ACL and other ligament damage but offered potential as a third receiver in this explosive offense. Unfortunately, he contributed in only 3 games and became a distant memory in 2018. Considering his $6.45 million 2019 cap hit, the Saints need to dump his money. Tre'Quan Smith's emergence makes Meredith expendable. Trading him would save the Saints an additional $1 million, which can help, seeing as the Saints have less than $11 million in space. The Saints are limited in ways to upgrade this offseason. With only 1 pick before the 5th round, they need to accumulate assets however possible, even if it's a late-round pick or salary relief. Moving Meredith helps accomplish that. Jeff Roberson, Associated Press. We've traded several Giants already in an effort to clear their bloated books and rebuild a lacking roster. Accumulating young assets in draft picks doesn't fit the timeline general manager Dave Gettleman likely envisions, but New York isn't ready to compete. Nabbing multi-year contributors would be wise. One of the most underrated slot defenders in 2017 was Colts cornerback Nate Hairston. He was excellent as a rookie despite being a 5th-round pick in a zone-based system that lacked complementary playmakers. The 6 feet, 0 inches, 195-pound Hairston's ability to play man against ultra-quick and larger slot receivers alike should have led to a bigger role in 2018, but his playing time dropped after an ankle injury. The Giants need corner help badly, and prying away Hairston for cheap would be a coup. Ideally, Hairston and 2018 third-round supplemental pick Sam Beal would be the faces of the position, along with another draft pick this season. Flopping one of their 4th-round selections for a solid slot corner would be a wise investment. Jeff Haynes, Associated Press. The Kansas City Chiefs are undergoing a defensive overhaul even though it may cost them pass rushers Justin Houston and Dee Ford. According to NFL Network's Ian Rapoport, the Chiefs may be open to dealing Ford for a 2nd-round pick. Though the Jets don't have a 2nd-rounder because of their trade-up for Sam Darnold, they could acquire one via a trade down from the overall pick. Ford is a better fit for a stand-up role than a 4-3 end, and the Jets badly need to find edge rushers after they ignored the position over the last few years. New defensive coordinator Greg Williams has experience in running a 4-3 front but can adjust for Ford by having him stand up as a de facto edge rusher. It doesn't change the defensive function despite being a wider gap assignment, but it helps the player be more effective. Trading down and acquiring 2 edge rushers could immediately make the Jets' defense elite if they nail the pick. Ford and a top 10 selection would start right away and increase the effectiveness of all the surrounding pieces. Long-term deal for Ford also wouldn't be an issue, considering the Jets have $102 million in cap space. Rick Scateri, Associated Press. Here's the other side of the Vikings-Raiders swap. Oakland would trade Osemele for Waynes. While Minnesota would take advantage of its cornerback depth, the Raiders would move away from an expensive veteran who no longer fits their scheme. Had Oakland continued to be a pulverizing gap run team,